So it's now time to implement paging, and what we want to do is not return all of our activities all at once to our clients. And what we're going to do, which kind of suits our application, is to implement vertical paging in this case, rather than the Google type of paging where we go across the page. Ours is going to be vertical, similar to Facebook and Twitter in that case. And what we need to do to implement this is we're going to go to our activities and our list, and this is where we're going to implement our paging. Now, there's several opportunities to implement paging in our application, and we're only going to focus on one to show how it's done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to refactor the list class inside our application activities. And what we want to return here is a list of activities, or our activity DTOs, and we also want to return the activity count, which will be the total number of activities that we have available for the query that's being passed to this particular list. And what we'll do is we'll create another class inside here, another nested class, and this is going to be an activities envelope where we're going to put our activities list in, as well as our activity count. So what we'll do, we'll create a new class called activities envelope, and inside here we'll have our list of activity DTO and called activities, and we'll also have an int for the activity count. And what we're going to do, instead of returning our list of activity DTO, we're going to return the activities envelope from this query now. So I'm just going to swap the returns for the list of activities to our activities envelope in the three places that are required inside our mediator. Now we're going to get an error because we're now not returning our activities envelope, and we're going to adjust this. And what we also want to do inside our query is we also want to take some parameters for the limit, the number of items we're going to return inside our activity list, and also an offset, which is how many items we're going to skip. And what we'll do is create two properties. One will be an int of limit, and the other one will be an int of offset. And what we can do, if we click on our properties here, we'll have the option to initialize a constructor from our properties. So I'm just going to choose this option, and this creates our constructor with our properties. And what we actually want to do is make both of these optional. So we'll make these ints optional. I'll remove the list dot from here because we don't need these inside our constructor, and also make the properties themselves optional. And this is what we're using for paging in this particular case. So what we'll do, we'll scroll on down to our logic, our handler logic, and what we'll do above our var activities, we'll create a queryable variable, and we'll set this equal to context.activities as queryable. And we'll also need to bring in system.link. And what we'll do with our activities here is we'll say var activities equals await queryable, and I've spelled queryable wrong. That should be queryable. And inside here we'll add our methods to first of all skip. How many records do we want to skip in our activities table? And what we'll do is we'll set this to the request.offset, and if this isn't set, then it will default to 0. And then we'll take the number of items we want to get from this query, and we'll set the request.limit. And again, we'll give it a default value of 3 if nothing is specified. And then we'll say toList async. And then what we want to do is return a new activities envelope, and we'll set the activities equal to the mapper.map function we have here. So I'll just cut this and paste it and assign it to the activities. And what we also want to do is return the activity count. So we'll say activity count equals queryable.count. And in this case, this is going to give us at the moment, 10 activities that we have as the number of activities we're returning in this particular case. So we're also going to need to adjust our API controller. So let's go to our activities controller. And we're getting an error because we're not returning an activities envelope here. So let's change this. And what we're returning is our activities envelope. And what we'll need to do is say list.activities envelope in this case. And what we also need to do is pass in our parameters here. And this is going to be our int, which is optional of limits, and int, again optional of offset. And then we can pass these into our query. So we'll say limits and offset. And I'm missing a closing angle bracket here as well. So this is what we're looking for. When we request our list of activities, we're going to be passing optional parameters for the limit and the offset, how many activities we're returning, and how many activities we're skipping in this case. And if we don't pass any parameters, then we're just going to get 3 activities starting at 0, which will be the first 3 activities in our table. So if we go and test this functionality in Postman, let's head over to Postman. And first of all, let's just get a fresh token for Bob. So we're just going to log in and save the token, just as we have been doing all the way through, and setting the token equal to a variable called token. So I'll just click send, and we get the token for Bob. And if we just go and get the activities just as we normally would, then what we should find is that we get 3 activities back, because that's what we've set our limit to inside our list. So I'll click send, and we get our activities, and what we should find is there's 3 of them. So we'll just go past the comments, and then we get past activity 2, and we also get future activity 1. And if I keep scrolling down, we then see we've also got our activity count, which is 10. So basically I've got 3 activities inside here, a tiny bit hard to see, but it's given us our 3 activities back, which is really what we're looking for here. And we've got some other testing queries here as well. So this one's going to set the limit to 5, and we're sending up our limit as a query string parameter. And this should return us 5 activities, and our activity count should of course still equal 10. And if I look at where we finished on the last one, then we finished at future activity 1. So when we run this particular query, we should be finishing at future activity 3. So I'll click send, and we get our activities again. I'll just scroll on down the list. And we've got our future activity 1. I'll keep going. And future activity 2, and future activity 3. And that's where our request finishes, and we get our activity count equal to 10 still. And this particular query is going to send up our limit of 5 and offset of 5. So this is going to retrieve the second half of our 10 activities. So it should start after the last one finished. So we should start at future activity 4 when we run this particular query. So let's just send this, and indeed that is the case. And we'll get our final 5 activities in this case. And these are all changeable, so if I set the limit to 2 and offset to 2, then we'll get our first or our second set of 2 activities. And if I click send, then we get future activity 1 and future activity 2. And this all looks good. This is what we're looking for. And what we can do now is go and configure this in the client so that we can implement paging inside there.